Hello YouTube, this is Louis Mender back with an updated Striker deck, and I wanted to go ahead and break it down and show off a couple of the replays that I've had during my climb. I'm currently in Diamond 4 and have been having a lot of fun with the deck and wanted to show you guys the slight tweaks and then some of the better games, so let me know what you guys think down below. Let's dive in. We're still running the 1 Effect Veiler, the 3 Max C, the 3 Ash, 2 Ghost, 3 Ray, 1 Rose. I've replaced the Evenly Matched with a Dark Hole. I felt the Evenly Matched is such a choreographed play that the Dark Hole is a little more spontaneous still and pairs better with the Dark Ruler No More. I also feel that the Dark Hole is not too effective at destroying my own monsters since we usually start and lead off with it. And Lightning Storm is something that can't kill those defense monsters, so I've even considered bumping it up to 2 in place of a Lightning Storm. 2 Regeki, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Rhoda, 2 Engage, 1 Afterburner, 3 Dark Ruler No More, 2 Lightning Storm, 2 Tactics Talent, 1 Area Zero, 1 Modules, 2 Called By, 1 Hornet Drones, the 3 Widow Anchor, 1 Shark Cannon, and 3 Linkage. We're at 2 Kagari, 3 Shizuku, 3 Hayate, 1 Kaina, the 2 Zeke, the Light Charmer, and the Dark. I've gone back to 2 Zeke from the Nightmare Phoenix. Again, that was a card I was running due to a lot of Runic Stun matchups, but I felt that the Zeke right now at this point in time is more valuable to have a Striker linked to that I can go back into. I also like the Unicorn and the Access Code Talker still. Line has actually been coming up a little bit more, but I'm still not sold on her, and I would say she's the most flexible spot in the extra dock at this time. We'll jump into a few replays and let's dive in. Alright guys, the first game we are going to hop into is going to be a turn 10 game against Prank Kid Spright. This is the best back and forth game that I feel like I have had this entire season. It is a wild ride, so let's see how it plays out. My opponent's going to start with a basic Prank Kids line into a basic Spright line, so it's nothing too out of the ordinary, so we'll kind of focus on my hand and what I'm looking to accomplish. I've got the Dark Ruler and the extra one just to spare. The Dark Ruler into Dark Hole is exactly why I've been doing this. If this was Lightning Storm, all of his defense monsters would still be able to survive, so the Dark Hole works great for us. And the triple Tactics Talent prevents me, if in case I get Ash Blossomed or maybe Max Seed at some point during my turn, to be able to benefit still. And I've got the Ray for my starter, so I would say this is a great hand. The only thing that could have made it better was having a Maxi instead of the Dark Ruler that popped off, but we can't have everything, so we'll take this. My opponent's just about done here. You will see that sadly he goes for the Nightmare Corruptor play on me, so tries to break out the floodgates on me. Luckily with us being Link focused, this won't be the worst thing in the world. He does get the Prank Kid pranks off, and so he's got a pretty strong board, I would say, at this point in time. Let's see how we break it. We're going to start with the Dark Ruler No More as my opponent chains an E-Telly to it. I am able to Ash Blossom it as my opponent then chains his Spright Elf. I don't have any way of stopping this, but luckily he didn't IP Masquerena because now I can Dark Hole everything. We use the talent to draw 2, and unfortunately he does have the Ash Blossom, but this ensures that if I can get Engage into my hand, it's going to resolve. So let's see how we can do it. We'll pitch into Hayate so that we can poke for the 15, even though it doesn't do damage, to dump the Engage. Once Engage is in grave, we'll go into Kagari so that we can add back the Engage, and the plan's to add the multi-roll to hand. Once multi-roll's in hand, we'll go ahead and get our extra draw, and we plan to Shizuku Shuffle. We'll Widow Anchor our own Shizuku so that we can end up setting it back into the end phase. And again, I feel like I've got a decently strong board compared to my opponent. I've got the Ash Blossom and the Widow Anchor and the Ray Engrave in order to give myself a pretty good defensive wall to ensure I've got an extra turn. In the end phase, I do Widow Anchor my own Shizuku so that I can get my Engage set as my opponent ends his turn. And I use the Ash Blossom on the Prank Kid prank since clearly my opponent has a rough hand. I don't want him to have any luck. I feel like I can win this turn if my Engage ends up resolving and put myself at a point where I have so much advantage my opponent can't catch up. So that's why I decide to pop that Dark Ruler. Now that my Engage has been banished, I need to get another one into grave so that I can add it back into hand. So that's what we'll dump with Hayate and then bring it back with Kagari like we did on our second turn. As we add back the engage, I plan to add a Widow Anchor to hand, that way I can have the extra disruption during his turn in the event he starts popping off, and drawing into the Ghost Spell's a perfect card as well. I'll be able to use that later this turn in order to negate his Prank, since again, he's had a very rough hand. I do use the Shark Cannon since I'm able to banish the Spright blue and able to set it back anyway. And at this point, I feel like I'm probably going to win the game on my next turn unless my opponent's able to top deck a Harpy's Feather Duster. We shotgun the Max Seed to play around Triple Tactics Talent, and what do you know, my opponent top decks Harpy Feather Duster. I do bring the IP to my field, that way I have the ability to go into potentially a Unicorn or maybe a Zeke during my turn, depending on what my opponent does. He ends up looking like he's going into a Colossus play using the Nemesis line. He does force my hand with the Spright Smashers, and I decide to go into a Zeke early so that I can banish that monster, and it guarantees that I can get my Ray back on the field. I did not want his Colossus to have a clean strike on me if he went into that line early, which he ends up doing at the end of his turn. So I think it was a smart play overall to ensure that I was able to end with still a Sky Striker monster on board, even if I can't activate Shizuku's effect. And then again, we're able to go spell the Pranks. This is the last duel that I did not run a second Zeke in, and I got rid of Nightmare Phoenix after this because if I had had a Zeke, I would have been able to banish this Colossus and end this duel a lot quicker. Instead, we'll add back the IP Masquerena and go into an Access Code Talker. And at this point in time, we're just looking to start banishing cards from our graveyard and waste his graveyard. I don't have a way to recycle mine, so I felt I might as well just start using as much destruction as possible. I'm going to destroy the Pranks, but I wasn't worried about the back row card since that's been sent since turn 1 of this duel and hasn't done anything to us yet. We'll get the 1700 damage, and this is where you can see it's a turn 6 duel, and we're still pretty high on life points. And I feel like we've got a slight edge. We end up popping Maxi in the main phase to prevent, again, a Triple Tactics Talent. My opponent starts comboing off again. He goes into the Elf. But at this point with Maxi, I just don't see how he can beat us. We go Area 0, and he does IPS after using the Spright Elf in a chain, which again goes into Underworld and gets me Nightmare locked again, which I'm not too worried about since I have the Area 0. I just need to draw into a Sky Striker, which of course I don't. It's not looking great for me in that regard, but with this much card advantage, the duel's over already. I make a dumb play and tried to Regeki this card, but it didn't really matter for us at that point. I do go into the Ray, link into the Unicorn to shuffle back the Underworld, since it does target. I discarded the Rose intentionally since I knew once the Underworld went to the extra deck, I'd be able to bring the Rose out and poke with Hayate, so I'd have the extra Sky Striker monster on my field for extra protection in the event, again, he combos off during his turn. I set the Hornet Drone since I've got linkage as my starter for next turn if I'm desperate, and I want to ensure he can't OTK me. He only sets and passes. We activate the Regeki, and we've got the ability to swing for game. Our opponent realizes and concedes, and you will see that as our wild first game of the day. Alright guys, jumping into our second replay of the day, we've got a matchup against Branded Despia. This is a deck I haven't seen too much over the last couple of seasons, and I can't say that I am sad to see it go. It was never my personal favorite deck to play, and Mirror Jade was always a very hard one for us to deal with, so I'm happy to see it be a little less frequent. We'll see how we handle it. We've got a great going second hand right now. We've got a starter, and we've got Max C. I am waiting to see if I can chain it to something, and I do get the Branded Fusion and the special summon out of it. And I draw into the Ash Blossom, which is a turn too late, or a draw too late, I should say. My opponent's going for the Tax Dragon line. It looks like he double Tax Dragons us on top of it, and he's getting ready to pass after summoning the Dramaturge, and you will see our hand isn't great for this. Even with Max C, I've got the Engage, but I don't have any way to get some of these monsters off board without committing to things, and I'm going to have to waste so many of my life points, and if I link into anything, then I'm going to get my effects negated, so hopefully I can draw into something like Dark Hole. And this is why I've been considering running another Dark Hole instead of 2 Lightning Storms, since it's just so valuable in situations like these. For the low price of 1200, I clear his board, and then we do go into the back row. I decided to go by a Called by the Grave on this because I would rather him not be able to use this card on his next turn, since it could potentially be something he does, since Lubellion's key to their strategy. So I saved the Ghost Spell for a later turn if it ends up coming to that. At this point, I've got everything I need for the OTK line other than a Ray, so I decide to activate the Engage and add the Ray to hand, and we go for it. We swing once with Ray. We go into Hayate, and we swing again, dumping the Rose. We'll do our first linkage, and we're going to go into Kagari. Kagari is boosted up to 3,000. We'll add back the Ray, and this is where he thought he was going to be able to fool me, but Ghost Spell comes in handy. This is why it's such a good card. Could have Called by the Grave it, but I felt like saving it at this point in time until he's tried to do something with Aliber on his next turn if he had another way of stopping me. But you will see he does not. We end up getting this to resolve. Swinging for 29. And swinging for the final blow with Shizuku. One of the rare times we're able to pull off the OTK line, and it's always fun to do so. Alright guys, one final replay for today, and it is going to be a matchup against ExoSister. In addition to this being a more unique deck, it was actually against the streamer Trishula. If you're not familiar with him, definitely go check him out on Twitch, but I had the pleasure of matching it up against him in the MCS about 2 weeks ago, and he completely destroyed me with Runic Spright, and I used Sky Striker and bricked horribly. So this is a little bit of a rematch, if you will. I did not know it at the time. He does go ahead and activate the Vadis, and I go ahead for the Ash to prevent him from going into his plays on my turn, but he does have the Cross out, so I'm not going to be able to negate him. I'm not too worried about whatever he brings out on board, since I do have the Regeki in hand and the Widow Anchor and can link away Ray if needed. We are able to pop both of his monsters. And this is where I start my greed of the day. I do decide to go for the combo with Area Zero and Ray, and I'm met with a Called by, so I'm going to lose my Ray out of this. So I am starting to get punished for the greed. However, I'm not going to be punished too severely, since luckily I'm able to draw my Hornet drones off of the Area Zero. I do activate that and end up going into Hayate, since this was my plan all along. It ends up being a wash other than the fact that I lost my Ray. The 1500 is nice, but I'm able to dump the Engage, and since I don't have 3 spells in grave already, I'm going to add the Engage back to hand. And I've got 2 Great Disruptions already in Widow Anchor and Called by. He has his best starter in Martha in grave, so I can negate it if he goes that line. So I decide to just add a Shizuku, or use Shizuku to add another Engage to my hand, so that next turn I feel like I can gain so much card advantage and put this game away. He does go ahead and activate the trap card so that he can bring out his ExoSister monsters and goes into a Caspital. I don't mind that he prevents me from special summoning from the grave this turn, since I don't have a Ray anyway, but I am going to negate it from activating and adding another spell to his hand. I don't have the 3rd spell yet, so I wasn't able to steal it, so he is able to destroy my Shizuku, and he sets 3 back row. At the start of my turn, I draw into Lightning Storm, and this is one of the reasons why another Dark Hole might have been nicer. With something on board, it's just not as convenient. So I do start off by popping my Called by and chaining it so that I can remove Martha, so it's not something I have to worry about this turn or the next. Once it's banished, we do end up drawing into a Rose and an Afterburners, which I think is a clear choice. In hindsight, I definitely should have activated the Afterburners first, so I could have gotten lucky popping one of these, but my thought process was that I could use the Engage so that I could activate a Widow Anchor, and this way if he used a trap or something, I'd be able to negate it from doing anything too damaging with Widow Anchor, but I get punished by him chaining Solemn Judgment to my Engage. Once this resolves, I do decide at that point in time it's worth using the Afterburners so that I can ensure that my Engage will hopefully resolve, but he's able to use both of his spells and banish my banish my Kagari as well, which at this point in time I start to pick up on the fact that I'm probably playing against a pretty good player based off the way he changed that and kind of had the foresight there. I do activate the Engage, and I'm able to get my Ray in hand, and I'm able to go for game at this point by chaining into Hayate, so he does concede. I didn't know it was him at the time. After I finished up this game, I hopped off for the night and jumped into Twitch, saw he was streaming, joined, and I recognized the name I had just played, and I told him about it, and he was cool about it, so it was definitely a good game, and if you're not familiar with him, definitely check him out. He's going to be in the big Master Duel event coming up, so I hope you guys enjoyed these games. Let's kind of go into the outro. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the end of the video. I'm just getting this channel started, so anyone watching all the way to the end is really appreciated. Comment down below and let me know what your thoughts were on the deck, on the gameplay. I know I'm not perfect with the deck, and I definitely still have a long way to go and a couple of lines I want to perfect and have a better understanding of how to best execute and get the most value out of them. But I think posting my replays and getting feedback from you guys, as well as us learning from them together, can be a valuable experience for us all, and hopefully was entertaining along the way. If you have any questions, I'll definitely be happy to answer them. Subscribe and like if you want to see more content, and I'll be back with you guys again soon.